Good morning. This is Cecil and Blues. Welcome to the Wildstar Weigh-In. This week, we're going to be looking at information that came out of PAX East, as well as looking at the new character creator options. I'm going to let these kind of play in the background while we talk about the news, so please enjoy. And we'll talk about some specifics of this when we get to the end, so pay attention. There will be a quiz. Let's start with the progression discussion. This was a huge part of the PAX East panel. They talked about item progression. When you run 5-man dungeons at max level in Wildstar, what they call their Elder game, nobody wants to call it end game because when you call it end game, it implies an end. It's a very corporate buzzwordy thing. Elder game, max level. I will bounce between those terms because I am not a corporate guy, so I don't care. You will receive blue items. These are rares, and a collection of these blue items will prepare you to run the 20-man raid. The 20-man raid, I believe, is called the Genetic Archive, and in that raid you will receive purple items. Those purple items can be taken to the 40-man raid. The 40-man raid is the Datascape. I believe we will be fighting against an evil version of the Caretaker. Possibly the Caretaker will finally reveal himself to be evil. I don't know. Both sides of him. Or maybe it's just another challenge by the Caretaker, like all the other adventures. We'll find out when we get there. I have no idea. In those raids, you will get oranges, legendary items. That's kind of a cool concept. They have not done that in other games. Usually the legendaries are those like rare candies that you're never going to get your hands on, the once in a lifetime. So it's nice to see Wildstar do away with that. Nope, just kidding. They added an extra tier, the rare candy tier, and it is a fluffy pink. And it is belonging to artifact weapons. Artifact weapons are unique for the character class. There are 2 per character class. 1 for your assault spec, 1 for your support spec. In the panel, they said that they drop from the highest level of content and are rare. They weren't specific about this, whether they dropped off specific bosses, or whether, maybe like Ragnaros's hammer, you have to collect different pieces and put them together. It is unclear. But since they did say the highest level of content, it kind of implied that there was a chance that you might be able to get them, say, from war plots. Because you get your item bags in war plots, so maybe it's possible 1 in a million chance that you'll pull an artifact out of that rabbit hat. That makes sense, right? Yeah, we'll go with that, rabbit hat. Now, what makes these pink weapons so awesome? Well, imbuements are a thing on max level items. They actually exist on items all throughout the game. The earliest you can experience an imbuement is actually in your starting zone. Every single starting zone has a quest that's usually, like, it's kind of a found quest. You kill a mob that is kind of a bigger mob, a little bit tougher, and it drops its head or some sort of its body, which gives you a quest. And you turn in that quest, and it usually rewards you with a better weapon than you could have otherwise gotten in the zone. It's a slightly hidden quest in every zone, and that item has an imbuement on it, and that imbuement is a quest to kill the boss in the area, the giant robot. I believe it is in every single starting zone. I could be wrong. And when you do that, your weapon picks up laceration. It's unique. It's not unique. It's the same for every single weapon, for every single class in this particular case. And it's neat. It's an extra effect on your weapon. It makes it very powerful, makes it really useful leading into the next area. That is the same sort of thing you're going to run into max level. Very good weapons that get even better when you complete their imbuement. I've seen imbuements on max level weapons or non-weapons. Armor also can have this, where the imbuement is activated by getting a gold on a different dungeon, or by beating some sort of time trial, or in PvP it might be completing a certain battleground, or killing a certain number of players, or killing a certain particular race. That's the sort of focus you're going to get on these imbuements. In the case of artifact weapons, they have multiple, many, boku, perhaps bunches of imbuements on them, and all of them are rock hard, difficult, confusing, time consuming, and powerful. They listed only in specific. They showed the tooltip, but it was so blurry on the stream you couldn't actually read it. But they did talk about the final imbuement quest for the warrior tanking weapon, which involves fighting two 40-man raid bosses in the open world at the same time, requiring a team of 80 players in order to survive this content as it's designed. And that's neat. And, I think back to the 60 game in World of Warcraft where you have the Kel'Danas, the Kel'Zara, the Q sword. That Q sword that warriors really liked. You had to, in order to power that sword up, you had to fight Onyxia, and you had to stand in the blade in her breath. You had to survive a breath attack from Onyxia with the weapon equipped. Then, when the fight was over, you had to stab the weapon into her body to temper the blade. And that was just one of the quests you had to do for that weapon. There was also the Thunder Fury, Blessed Blade of the Windseeker. That had a whole quest line associated with it. I think of weapons like this, or maybe the Loch Dinar, the hunter bow and arrow that required you to go around and fight the 4 different demons that required you to kind of master different hunter techniques. I am hoping that we get that type of interaction from these artifact weapons, because that's cool. It's memorable for you. It's time consuming and it's frustrating in some ways, but it's also very memorable. And if you want to have the most powerful weapon, well, you should probably have to work for it. Also, on the subject of gear progression, they mentioned this in the patch notes and they reiterated it on the panel. If you want to buy these items from the Elder Gem vendors, you have to deserve them. You have to have completed the content that they come from and just not gotten the drop. Then you can spend the currency. They view the currency as a last-ditch effort, not as a primary way in order to get these items. So if you want to buy a blue item, you have to have completed the dungeon that the item comes from. If you want to get a purple item, you have to have killed the boss that the item would have otherwise dropped off of. The good news is this sounds like that means that the items won't be of lesser value. They won't be weaker than what you could have gotten in the dungeon. So that's good. And how do I feel about that? On the one hand, I think it's nice the way Warcraft does it, where if you're a super casual player and you log in on a weekly basis and you get your Valor points, after a couple of months you can buy a piece of gear and start working your way up. And there's no way you're going to be as awesome as the guys who are raiding. They're always going to have it first, and they're always going to have it better. But you can eventually have it. And I will be sad that maybe I never get to equip purples, but that's just the way it is. If you play the game in a more casual fashion, then you're going to have an experience that matches that, and I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. Moving on, what else did they talk about? They talked about story. This was super exciting to me because Chad Moore dropped a knowledge bomb on us. There are story solo instances in Wildstar that we have not seen in beta. They have hid them from us so that we can experience them with everybody else at launch. I'm so happy about that. I'm really super happy for two reasons. One, I'm happy to know that there's still something that I get to experience fresh and new when I play through the game at launch. Also, I am happy that the feeling of disconnect that I was getting post level 35, when I felt like the story was somehow like lacking, now it makes sense. I understand why, because I was actually missing out on these story instances that probably are stitching together the plot that is going on even in the zones. And that's cool. These stories will primarily feature a character known as Dracira, who is perhaps one of the Elden. I'm not really clear on this. Sorry, I had to take a little bit of a drink there. My throat is drying out. I've had to record this several times because a train keeps going by and blaring its horn. So far, it seems to have dissipated. This character, Dracira, she has appeared, and I've run into her in the open world, but I've not had the pleasure of her story instances, and I look forward to that. And apparently it's going to be her and the caretaker teaching you kind of what happened to the Elden. And by max level, you will have known why the Elden are no longer on Nexus. And what happened to them. Whether it was a tragedy, whether it was, evolution, like in Stargate SG-1, whatever it is, they're going to give that to us. It's going to be over 5 instances leading up to cap, and once we are max level, there will be episodic story missions that come out on a regular basis, semi-regular basis, that will continue this story and evolve it. It will involve our faction leaders. It will involve the origins of the Elden. It will involve what we're going to do once we learn what's going on, and the progression. It should help move the world forward. They did explain there will be some story in the raids, but not a ton. Most of the story is going to come from these solo instances. That was primarily what they showed us in the panel. They did a little bit of PvP. They didn't show off much war plots. They showed a great trailer to us for war plots. I'll put a link to it below if I remember. It's a fantastic flick done by the cinematics team at Carbine. They always knock those out of the park. I really enjoy it. And it's got great music, great voice, just phenomenal. Phenomenal job. If the cinematics team is listening, I applaud you guys. You guys are amazing. You nail it every time. Thank you so much. You add such flavor to this game. I love it. Now, let's talk about some other news. War plots. What are war plots? Well, war plots, Jen Gordy gave several interviews at PAX. They also did a knowledge drop on the website on Wednesday that talked a bit about it. The war plots are essentially a giant floating fortress, and you will land that floating fortress on one side of a battlefield that's quite large, and you'll have base on one side, base on other side, and destroy each other. They are 40 v40 battles, and one assumes you will be color-coded red and blue, and that will make it easy to make a machinima on it and become millionaires. So I gave you that idea, all right? So when you're a millionaire for making, I don't know, we'll call it blue guys fights red guys, when you get $1 million with that idea, remember who set you up. Good old Cecil and Blues. Now, this is a big map. There are resource nodes in the middle. There are generators in each base, and each base has 7 plugs that are customizable. And these plugs can be small, large, and super weapon. I don't know the exact layout. I assume you can only have one super weapon, because otherwise it's not that super, right? I mean, if you got like 3 super weapons, like there's kind of like weapons then. So I'm gonna guess 3 small, 3 large, 1 super weapon. I could be wrong. There could be a medium tier that I'm missing in my research. I have not opened up a war party. I really should. I have a max level character. Apparently I could just make a war party, so I should maybe do that and fiddle around with it. I may do that over this beta weekend. The fights are to control the resources, to power up your gear, and then attack your opponent's war plot and destroy their generators. Either you want to deplete their resources to 0, or destroy all their generators, I think. Any plugs that get damaged over the course of the fight remain damaged, and you have to repair them either by spending war coins or replacing them, depending on if they were crafted or purchased. War plots is a very high-end feature. It requires you to have a guild of 40 to 80 people to participate at the highest level, but it's not the only way to play. If you have a smaller war party, even like 10 people, you can queue up as a group and click the option that says allow mercenaries, and that will fill up your ranks with mercenaries. So if you have 10 people, it'll fill in 30 mercenaries to join you, and a mercenary is just a pug. It's people who want to participate in war plots but don't have a war party, or whose war party isn't currently playing, but damn do they love them some war plots, so they will help out other people. It will match you together using a ranking system. You have 2 separate rankings. One is for your war party's ranking based on its success, and then one is your personal ranking. And when you queue up looking for mercenaries, the mercenaries will be brought in to be equal to your war party's overall ranking. Hopefully this will work out pretty well. I'm nervous that maybe there won't be enough people to make that be close enough. But if they get this successful enough that there's like 1,000 war party games going on, war plot games going on at any given time, well, yeah, then you're pulling 80,000 people into a match, and the ratings are going to be pretty close at that point. Obviously, when you're talking like full parties, you can have some scrubs and some awesome dudes in your group that are automatically getting paired together. Maybe you just started a new war party and you recruited 30 guys from the best war party that just disbanded for some reason, and so they're super high ranked and in super awesome gear, and your party's very low ranked, and you're going to steamroll people for a while. But it'll eventually fix itself, right? So I have high hopes for that. I hope their system works well. It sounds like it's well designed. If they have the population to support it, I think it'll work out really well. And I think the mercenary system is the right way to go. It allows everyone to participate if they want, even if they're not part of a large guild, or if they're part of a large guild but they don't play at the same time as when their war party goes. What's more, if you're a mercenary and you're looking for a war party, this is probably a pretty good way to find one. These matches shouldn't be hours long, days long, like old school Alterac Valley, but Jen Gordy said that you can expect matches to last 30 to 45 minutes. So that's a good length for a large-scale fight. I would expect them to be even longer. 45 minutes to an hour and a half is what I guess I would kind of expect. But I don't know what the reward structure looks like either. So you don't want to be stuck in an hour and a half long match and then you get a bag with like 2 gold in it. We'll see. Definitely, and I'm sure that they'll keep an eye on that and adjust rewards accordingly. What else did they talk about last week? On the forums, there was a discussion on simple names, which is probably a good time to mention it since we're just starting to get into the Macari here. The simple names addressed an issue with naming. They removed the ability to put numbers in your names. And that was because people weren't using them to be clever and having, like... Actually, there's two reasons. One of them was people weren't using it to be clever and, like, naming their Makari like I did, Hotaka, but a 0 instead of the O. They were doing it like, I'm Bob, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 2, 4, 2, 8. And that gets kind of silly. Also, Chad Moore clarified that Makari don't put numbers in their names. They want to appear human. It's part of their programming. So they would never name themselves like that. Not a single Makari anywhere in the game has a number in its name. It's not part of their culture. They also added the ability to use accents in your names. The accents... People complained that, well, this just creates the same problem. Now, instead of being Dark Zero 104, you're going to be Dark Zero in order to get that name, even though someone else took it. One of the developers jumped in, and I apologize, I don't remember who it is. It could be Cougar, but it could have been someone else. So, some guy, or gal, some developer, gave us some good information on how this is going to work. Simple names means that no matter what, the name gets boiled down to its base parts. If you create a character on a server named Dark Zero, since we're on that, and then someone else tries to create Dark Zero and it tells them name already taken, and they're like, oh, okay, well then I'll be Dark Zero. And they'll say, no, that name is already taken. You can only have one version of that name. If they want to create a different version, they'll have to spell it differently. They can't use the accents. This works the other direction too. If I create a character named Serge, excuse me, throat clogged up on me there, Serge, no one else can create Serge, because Serge is taken. Now, because I took Serge, it's a pain in the butt to talk to me, right, in most games, because you gotta know the alt codes to get the accents I used. Well, they fixed that. It's built in to the system that it just automatically deals with. You type in Serge, and it'll talk to Serge, it'll talk to Serge, whatever the person put in. If you want to type in Serge, and their name is Serge, well, that works too. And that's great. And I think that's all I'm going to talk about, because I'm running out of character creation video here. So thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you've enjoyed what we've shown off here. Let me know how you feel about the character creation. I think the new hairstyles and the new body options are good and interesting. And I look forward to some feedback from people. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. I'll be doing more Wildstar content as time rolls on. And I hope you have, gosh, just the best darn day possible.